DC was an amazing trip. I loved every part of it. Right when we arrived, we started the adventure. First thing was a scavenger hunt in downtown Philadelphia. First on the hunt, we saw the Liberty Bell. At the Liberty Bell, as you can see right behind me, there it is. How do you do that? There. See that? Looking pretty nice. Yeah. It's pretty cool. With friends. Yeah. So, there it is. See that? The real thing. As you can see in here by the Liberty Bell, right behind us is that one building. But it has George Washington in front of it, so I think that's pretty cool. See ya. Right next to the Liberty Bell was a cool slave passage. After that, we saw the Independence Hall. There were a couple of documents there, such as the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Perpetual Union, the document of the Writing of Fair Opportunity, the Great Essentials, and last but certainly not least is the Constitution of the United States of America. Second stop was the Congress Hall, with the statue of George Washington in front of it. We got a tour of the hall right here.
And all over British North America, and you're looking at much of the original fabric of the building. And yes, they did paint their walls the types of colors that we see here, even the woodwork. So this was a courtroom. This is not the room where the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution were signed in. This was the highest court in Pennsylvania, and it was filled with judges and juries and attorneys. Members of the general public had free access to this courtroom. You turn around and notice there's no door that you can separate this room from the rest of the building. Public trials were encouraged. And even if you knew nothing about the law of colonial America, you could probably guess where the defendant or the defendants were expected to stay at trial. It was called the prisoner's dock. Put your legs or your feet or your knees in these balustrades or railings. Sometimes they can get stuck. So can you imagine what people were thinking and feeling? They were members of the Second Continental Congress, all 13 colonies in this horseshoe-shaped alignment were both angry and sure many of them were scared.
Right outside of that was a tablet placed on the ground of where Abe Lincoln himself stood in Philadelphia. And now prepare for your mind to be blown. Right down in Philly, for only $5 a person to get in, you can see Ben Franklin's grave. And here's a pic of the rest of the cemetery. Next up we have the jail. These paintings were made by inmates. And here's the actual structure of the early jail, pretty beaten and worn down. You are currently looking at an aisle of cells. Inside these cells didn't look much better than the outside. Right here is what the prisoners got to look forward to as a backyard. And now here's a story. There were many attempts of escapes at this jail, and only one was successful. A young man locked the watchguard in the greenhouse and grabbed his 13-foot ladder, which he'd been building for quite a while before that, and climbed over the fence. So, they added a watchtower to every corner of that 13-foot wall after that. As time progresses, the jail starts to evolve to hold more prisoners and not in as harsh conditions. These were real gunshots in the doors, but we didn't get told where they were from. When the jail eventually had too many people to hold, they had to add a whole extra building. This next building was made from one of the inmates from the jail. Right here is one of the final designs of the jail, with 2 to 3 stories of cells. After a good night's sleep is another fun day. Bright and early the next morning, we went to visit Mount Vernon, George Washington's house. And right here is a model of his house. And this is the actual house. Here in display is Washington's real dentures. And right here is the famous portrait of Washington, and he obviously didn't keep gold-framed pictures of himself in the house. It was a little edited after his death. Now we enter the part of his house that was not touched at all. Here's the dining room, and now the guest rooms. The Washingtons had a whole extra story of the house dedicated for beds for the guest. And in his backyard, George Washington had a huge yacht. But I think that's a little new, not too historical. Here's George himself in his tomb with his wife. Next on the schedule is the National Archives of the United States of America. Sadly, you can't take any pictures in there, so here are some off the web, of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Next up was Arlington. And at Arlington, I got to see my grandpa's or my dad's plaque. That's because after the war, he decided to be cremated. The next thing we saw was the statue of Americans raising the flag on Iwo Jima. Right next door to the statue was the White House. Sadly, we didn't get to see as much as we would have liked of the White House, but here's a better picture. Then we went to see the memorials. Here's the Washington Monument with a beautiful sunset moon background, and here's the World War II Memorial. The World War II Memorial, with 4 quotes in each corner from presidents. Here's the Lincoln Memorial with a nice sunset, and the Martin Luther King Memorial. At the MLK Memorial, we got to see an amazing view over the river. And here's a video of the wall of the Korean War Memorial. And here are the statues of it. Obviously, right next here is the Lincoln Memorial. This is a picture of the George Washington Monument in line with the Capitol, as I'm standing at the memorial of Abraham Lincoln. There's another moonlight picture at the Washington Monument. The very first thing we did the next or last day was see the Capitol. There were lots of cool statues and paintings of the Capitol. And here's where John Quincy Adams' real desk sat. Right here's the Supreme Court of the United States, but sadly we did not get to go in. Right next are the paintings of the Gettysburg Battle. And those were really cool to see. And here is the actual battlefield of the Gettysburg Battle. That wraps up near the end of my trip. And, yeah. Here's my group of friends I got to see everything with. All in all, this was an awesome trip, and I loved everything about it. Thank you for everyone who contributed money to make it possible.